Israel and the US have launched a series of coordinated attacks on Iran. President Donald Trump says Operation Epic Fury is aimed at annihilating the regime's defenses. State media are showing destructions in the capital Tehran. Witnesses have reported smoke rising near the offices of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who's not been seen in public for days. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it has launched a wave of drones and missiles targeting Israel and US bases in the region. Blasts have been heard in the United Arab Emirates, in Jordan, Bahrain and Kuwait, where tens of thousands of US troops are stationed. Now, let's take a closer look how these events unfolded. Iranian state TV airs footage of what it says is the aftermath of US-Israeli strikes in Tehran. Smoke has been seen rising across the Iranian capital, with many videos appearing on social media. Witnesses report hearing explosions. Footage of a military jet has also been circulating. US President Donald Trump confirmed the strikes. A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. Sirens have been blaring across Israel as the country warns its citizens to prepare for retaliatory attacks. Israel says its defense system has already intercepted missiles launched from Iran. Israel's prime minister was quick to justify why the country took action. Challenging days await us. Every military action involves risk, but the risk of not acting is much greater because if we do not act, we will get a nuclear Iran, an Iran with tens of thousands of ballistic missiles, an Iran that will work to destroy us and will be immune to our countermeasures. As a people who want to live, we have no choice but to act. These images from Bahrain have appeared on social media. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has confirmed it's targeted the US Fifth Fleet, which is based in the Gulf state. Sirens have been sounded in Kuwait, home to another US Army base. Smoke has also been seen in the skies above Doha in Qatar. Meanwhile, airlines across the world have cancelled flights. Airspace over much of the Middle East is empty as fears grow of a wider conflict. Faris Gies is a professor of international relations at the London School of Economics. He joins us now from London. Now, Trump has urged the people of Iran to take their government back once the strikes are over. Do you think they'll be receptive to that message, or are they likely to rally around the flag? I think it's too early. No one knows what will happen in Iran and the region in the next few days and next few months. But if you ask me as a historian, if history is a lesson, the Iranian people rally around the flag when that country is under attack. My fear is that President Trump's call for the Iranian people to rise up against the government, this is mainly could be suicidal for tens of thousands of Iranians, because the Iranian government still has a significant popular base of support. This is a call for civil strife, so even though we have to wait and see, I doubt it very much whether we're going to see millions of Iranians heading the call of either President Trump or Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So do you think this is a recipe for civil war in Iran, rather? Well, I think again, we have to wait and see. The situation is influent. It's too early. It's the beginning of a long war. My take on it, and I could be wrong. The Iranian leadership is deeply entranced. They have had time to plan and to coordinate their actions. And I think they're planning for a long war. It will be a long war. And I think the consequences for both the Iranian people and the region will be catastrophic, for a variety of reasons. But at this particular moment, there is no clarity, and there's a great deal of dust, and we are blinded by the dust. Two things we know for sure: that this is a coordinated war between Israel and the United States, and I think the overarching strategic aim of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu is regime change in Iran. Do I really believe that Donald Trump could basically bring about top of the Iranian government? No, I think it's wishful thinking. We have been there before. We have seen this show in the Middle East many times in the past 70 years or so. So you don't think that Trump's goal of destabilizing the government at least, and then sort of trying to push the opposition, that is realistic? Well, look, do I believe that the American-Israeli attacks on Iran will devastate Iran? Absolutely. I think what Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are trying to do is to basically kill as many top leaders in Iran as possible, is to destroy the military and security and strategic infrastructure of Iran, is to wipe out any kind of really strategic weapons in Iran, and they could do so. But do I really believe that Donald Trump could bring about the Iranian government by air power? No, I don't. I don't think there is any military expert or historian who believes that air power on its own could bring about regime change, in particular in Iran. This Iranian government, the Islamic Republic, is deeply entrenched. It has a major popular support, even though millions of Iranians would like to bring about change in Iran, and we've seen the protesters. So yeah, I think President Trump not only aim is unrealistic, I think it's wishful thinking. But the reality is, regardless of what we think of the Islamic Republic and its repressive nature, this is an illegal, unjust and illegitimate war. It's a war of choice. And if you tell me as a historian to really summarize what we have seen, whether in June of last year or this year, I think we are seeing naked power as the dominant currency of politics and diplomacy. International institutions have been shattered to million pieces. Now, what kind of actions do you expect Iran to take now if they find themselves under continued waves of attack? Well, look, I think Iran has very limited choices. Iran's skies are almost open. Its air defenses are non-existent, and that's why I believe that the American-Israeli attacks will be devastating to Iran. So Iran will try to prolong the war. Iran will play for time. Iran will basically realize this is a long game. And this is really the overarching strategic aim for Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, is regime change in Tehran. The overarching aim of the Iranian regime is basically resilience, is resistance, is to basically absorb the first and the second and the third shocks and basically continue to resist, even though what we have seen so far is a minimalist response on the part of the Iranian governments, because I think they are positioning themselves for a long, long war, as President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have made it very, Last question briefly, please. So, you're saying that the strategy of the US and Israel is doomed to fail? Absolutely. Its President Trump has made it very clear his strategy is regime change. He has called on the Iranian people to basically revolt against government, and he has made it very clear he will try to wipe out the infrastructure, the security, and the strategic infrastructure, and kill the security and the top leadership of Iran. Thank you very much. Faris Gag is their Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics. Thank you. Thank you. And we can now speak to Harhelia. He's a Senior Fellow in Security Studies at the Royal United Services Institute for Defence and Security Studies. He joins us from London. Now, what do you think is the goal here behind the US and Israeli attacks? Thank you very much for having me. So, Donald Trump made it very clear what the goal was and the final analysis. It's the end of this regime. It is regime change. There were mentions around the nuclear program, but the Omani foreign minister made it very clear in public, on American television yesterday, that he thought they'd come very close to a deal on precisely that issue. And what you've seen earlier today as well in the Israeli press is confirmation that the Israelis are trying to target and assassinate the senior leadership of Iran, including the supreme leader. So, it's clearly about regime change. The question is what sort of damage is going to have to take place before they think that they've actually achieved their goals in this regard? Do you think that's a valid proposition to achieve regime change from the air, if you will? No, I don't. And I think that any time that you've seen the fall of a regime in history, it has necessitated one of two things. Either an external ground force or some sort of mass defection on the ground that then becomes the alternative source of authority. In this case, I don't think you have either one of those. We haven't seen an organized opposition on the ground that would be able to take power in Iran without there being additional forces from outside and not from the air, but on the ground. And I don't think that we're going to see American troops or Israeli troops or any other troops that are going to be willing to go and actually put forces on the ground, boots on the ground. Now let's talk about the Iranian reaction, the retaliation with the attacks in other Middle East countries. Is that what could be expected? It was entirely expected. I don't think it's the best calculation. The idea seems to be that this will put pressure on these countries to then try to pull the Americans back and to end these strikes. What is equally likely, and frankly probably more likely at this point, is for those countries that didn't want this war, did not want these strikes on Iran, but for these countries to turn around and think, well, this is the chaos that we've been worried about, and we are now in the firing line, we are in the crosshairs, we are now targets. So they're going to be looking for ways to repel that threat. And repelling that threat is probably going to involve the Americans. I think that's a very likely scenario that these strikes on these countries by the Iranian regime is likely to push them towards thinking that, well, maybe we should align more clearly with the American plan at this point, because the scenario has already unfolded. We're already in a war, and we need this to end. Now, do you see this then as a brief, decisive campaign, as which it is surely planned, or is it likely to become a more prolonged affair? I'm not sure it's planned as a brief, decisive campaign, unless you mean not years, but I don't think this is meant to be just a couple of days or something like that. I think that there's much more of an appetite in DC and among the Israelis to really go all the way when it comes to this. So this could be days, it could be longer. The issue, I think, is going to be when the Israelis and the Americans realize that if they're looking for regime change and there isn't an alternative source of authority on the ground that could take power, then what do? At this point, even if the top leadership of the Iranian regime were all to be assassinated, you still have arms, weapons, the monopoly of force being centered almost exclusively in regime institutions. So some sort of alternative authority is likely to arise, but it would be from within the regime. It wouldn't be as of yet. It wouldn't be from outside of, so barring any mass defections, I think that that's the way that's going to play out. Now let's look at the other two major power centers, globally, Russia and China, which have requested an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council. What can we expect from that meeting? I think you can expect a lot of condemnations at the UN Security Council from the Russians, from the Chinese, and frankly from many in the global south with regards to this. A few isolated Western actors, for example, the Spanish and the Irish, were pretty vocal. The Norwegians, the Swiss in not wanting this to go forward. And now that it's gone forward are still clear that they think that it shouldn't have gone forward and that they're looking for a way to de-escalate. But I don't think that any of this is going to materially stop the American-Israeli campaign. I think that they've decided that this is the way they want to go. They are not interested in some sort of restraint in this regard. If they see that they have an opportunity, then they're going to take it. That's exactly what they've done. And I think at the UN it's going to be a lot of mudslinging in different directions. But operationally on the ground, I don't think much is going to change. Now, given the fact that Trump came into office, or the promise of ending wars and not starting new ones, how long can he keep that up, and at what stage will he lose support both from his party and from his base? So I think within the United States this is likely to get fairly unpopular fairly quickly. There's the image of the background image of the Iraq War, something that Donald Trump himself talked very negatively about multiple times. I do think that he's going to keep striking Iran for the next few days at least. I wouldn't be surprised if it went on beyond that, and then try to recoup thereafter. But there's a definite desire to see the end of this regime, and to engage accordingly. And if that's the stated aim, and it was made very clear today in the Truth Social video on his platform, then there's a lot more that he's going to have to do before he thinks that he's done all he can. Thank you very much. Helia, Senior Fellow in Security Studies at the Royal United Services Institute. Thank you very much.